Beneath the familiar streets and fields we walk every day lies another world entirely. These are the vast underground labyrinths, silent networks carved by ancient hands for reasons that still puzzle us today. They are more than just old ruins. They are time capsules sealed in stone, holding the untold secrets of civilizations long vanished. By the end of our journey, you will understand the incredible truths these dark passages reveal about human ingenuity and survival. We will uncover why entire societies chose to build their most important spaces deep within the earth, and what mysterious forces they may have been hiding from, or perhaps communing with. What forgotten story hidden in the dark would you most want to hear? There is a primal pull to the hidden world, a thread that runs from ancient myths of underworlds to our own childhood games of building forts and seeking out secret passages. This is not a modern invention but a deep-seated part of the human experience. We are drawn to the mystery of what lies just out of sight, beneath our feet. In stories across cultures, the underground is a place of transformation, of hidden knowledge, and of confronting the unknown. It is the final frontier of archaeology, a realm where every new tunnel discovered can rewrite a chapter of our shared history. These labyrinthine networks are the ultimate physical expression of that mystery. They are a direct challenge to the history books we think we know, pushing explorers and scientists to venture into the dark with only a headlamp and a hope for revelation. The simple act of stepping down into one of these spaces is profoundly different from studying a ruin in the open air. You are not just looking at history. You are entering it. You feel the chill of the earth, see the tool marks left by a hand thousands of years ago, and for a moment you share the same air, the same silence. This tangible connection to the past is what fuels our global quest to find and understand these subterranean marvels. These underground labyrinths are not simply caves. They are something far more deliberate. To truly grasp their mystery, we must first define what sets them apart. An unexplored underground network is a vast, man-made or heavily modified complex of tunnels, chambers, and passageways. Think of it not as a single room, but as an entire subterranean neighborhood, a hidden cityscape carved from the living rock. The first defining characteristic is its sheer scale and interconnected nature. This is not one tunnel leading to a dead end. It is a web of corridors, often on multiple levels, linking storage rooms, living quarters, water sources, and ceremonial spaces into a single, sprawling entity. You could, in theory, spend days navigating its depths without ever retracing your steps. The second key feature is the undeniable evidence of human design. The walls are not rough and natural. They are smoothed, shaped, and show the precise chisel marks of ancient tools. You will find carved staircases, arched doorways, ventilation shafts that reach up to the surface for air, and sophisticated systems for channeling water. Every corner and corridor speaks of immense labor and a clear, intelligent plan. The third and most tantalizing characteristic is the mystery of their purpose. While we can guess at some functions, the full reason these complexes were built often remains just out of reach, obscured by the silence of centuries. This foundational understanding transforms these spaces from simple holes in the ground into monuments of human ingenuity. They are the buried blueprints of a forgotten mindset, and with this definition in mind, we can begin to appreciate the true scale of the enigma we are about to uncover. One of the most profound examples of this ancient mystery lies on the Mediterranean island of Malta. The Hypogeum of Saflieni is a sprawling underground complex that descends for 3 full levels deep into the limestone bedrock. Its name itself means underground, and it is a place that truly lives up to its title. To walk through its dimly lit halls is to step directly into a world that is over 5,000 years old. You move from the upper level with its large communal chambers down into the labyrinthine middle level, a honeycomb of smooth-walled rooms and oval-shaped niches. Then you descend further still to the lowest and most profound level, a deep pit that seems to draw you into the very heart of the earth. This is not a natural cave system. Every single corridor, every ceiling, every perfectly rounded chamber was carved by hand using simple stone and bone tools, an undertaking of almost unimaginable patience and skill. The air is cool and still, and the silence is so profound it feels like a physical presence. But the Hypogeum holds another secret, one that makes its silence even more haunting. Certain chambers within the complex possess remarkable acoustic properties. A deep voice spoken in one of these rooms can resonate throughout the entire level, creating a powerful, vibrating hum that seems to come from the walls themselves. This has led to fascinating theories that the Hypogeum was not just a tomb, but a place of ritual and sound, perhaps even an oracle chamber where priests or priestesses used these echoes to communicate with the unseen. We know for a fact that it served as a necropolis, as the remains of thousands of individuals were found within its depths. Yet the sheer architectural sophistication, the careful planning of its 3 tiers, and its mysterious sonic features suggest a purpose far grander than simple burial. It stands as a silent question carved in stone, a testament to a prehistoric culture whose understanding of engineering, spirituality, and even acoustics seems to defy the era from which it came. The people who built this underground sanctuary left no written records, so the echoes in its chambers are all that remain of their voices, inviting us to listen and to wonder. Yet the silent, resonant mystery of Malta is not an isolated phenomenon. Half a millennium later and over 500 miles to the north, another civilization was carving a different kind of sanctuary beneath the earth, this one born from faith and necessity. The Catacombs of Rome form a shadow city beneath the Eternal City, a labyrinthine network of tunnels that stretches for hundreds of miles. While the Hypogeum was a monumental feat for its small island culture, the Roman catacombs represent a communal effort on an almost unimaginable scale, dug by a persecuted minority seeking a place for both their dead and their living faith. Their primary purpose was as a vast, organized burial ground. Early Christians, who often rejected the Roman practice of cremation in favor of burial in anticipation of bodily resurrection, needed space. The soft volcanic tufa rock beneath Rome was perfect for digging, and so they began to carve out these endless corridors. Walking through them today, you are surrounded by the very fabric of that purpose. The walls are lined floor to ceiling with long, rectangular niches known as loculi, each one once sealed with a slab of marble or terracotta, a final resting place for a single individual. It is a sobering sight, a literal stacking of history and humanity, but these tunnels were far more than a city of the dead. During periods of intense persecution, when practicing Christianity above ground could mean arrest or death, the catacombs became a secret world for the living. In small, hidden chambers known as cubicula, families and congregations would gather in flickering lamplight to celebrate their forbidden rites. It was here, surrounded by the tombs of their martyred brethren, that the earliest forms of the Mass were whispered. Occasionally, you will find a break in the endless rows of loculi, a small room adorned with a rare, faded fresco. These are some of the oldest surviving Christian artworks in the world. A simple image of a shepherd carrying a lamb, representing Christ the Good Shepherd, or a depiction of Jonah and the whale, symbolizing salvation and resurrection. In this context, these were not mere decorations. They were profound statements of faith and hope, visual sermons painted in the dark to comfort and strengthen a community living in fear. The atmosphere in the catacombs is not one of dread, but of a deep, persistent, quiet reverence. The air is cool and still, the silence broken only by the sound of your own breath. You can feel the weight of centuries of prayer and devotion, a tangible connection to a time when an entire faith was nurtured and preserved in these subterranean passages. This hidden network did not just bury the dead. It helped a radical new religion survive, its very existence a testament to the enduring human need for a sanctuary, a place to hide, to hope, and to endure when the world above offers none. Far to the east, in the heart of Turkey's otherworldly Cappadocia region, the concept of an underground refuge was engineered on a scale that defies belief. Here, the landscape is dotted with fairy chimneys and soft volcanic rock, a geology that made possible one of the most ambitious subterranean projects ever conceived, the underground city of Derinkuyu. This was not merely a network of tunnels or a burial complex. It was a complete, self-contained metropolis built to shelter not dozens, not hundreds, but potentially 20,000 people for months at a time. The city plunges 18 levels deep into the earth, a vertiginous descent of nearly 85 meters, the equivalent of a 20-story building constructed entirely downward. Each level was a meticulously planned district of this inverted world. You would find everything a bustling community above ground would need. There were spacious living quarters for families, their walls blackened by the soot of ancient oil lamps. There were stables for livestock, ensuring a supply of milk and meat. There were churches with vaulted ceilings, their crosses carved into the stone walls, providing a spiritual anchor in the depths. There were communal kitchens, storage rooms stocked with giant clay jars of grain and oil, and even sophisticated wine presses, proof that life, not just survival, was intended to continue here. But the most brilliant features of Derinkuyu are those designed for absolute security. The entire city could be sealed off from the inside. At strategic choke points throughout the labyrinth, massive, millstone-shaped doors, each weighing several hundred kilograms, stand ready to be rolled across the passages. These were not just barriers, they were impenetrable plugs carved from the same dense volcanic rock, and they could only be operated from within, locking out any potential invaders. Ventilation was provided by over 50 carefully engineered shafts that reached all the way to the surface, providing fresh air and water to even the deepest levels, while also acting as cleverly disguised wells. The prevailing theory is that Derinkuyu served as a periodic refuge for the region's inhabitants, most likely early Christians, during times of relentless invasion and conflict. It represents a communal survival strategy of breathtaking sophistication. This was a place where an entire population could vanish from sight, their world above left eerily empty, while a parallel city thrived in the silent, protected dark below. Derinkuyu is more than a city. It is a monument to the human instinct to preserve civilization itself when the surface world becomes too dangerous, a masterpiece of defensive planning that speaks to a profound and practical resilience. But the drive to carve out a world beneath our feet is not confined to the distant past. In the jungles of Vietnam, a labyrinth was born not from faith or burial rites, but from the brutal necessities of modern warfare. The Ku Kai tunnels are a starkly different kind of underground network, a claustrophobic and immense web that stretched for over 120 miles just outside of Saigon. This was not a sanctuary for the dead or a refuge for a community. It was an entire military base, a hidden city for Viet Cong soldiers, built to survive and fight against a technologically superior enemy. To enter one of these tunnels is to understand a new dimension of resilience. The main passages are often so narrow that an average-sized adult must crawl on their hands and knees, the earth pressing in from all sides. The air is thick and hot, smelling of damp clay and history. Yet within this oppressive darkness, an entire society functioned. The network was a masterpiece of multifunctional design. There were cramped living quarters where soldiers slept in shifts, field hospitals where operations were performed by candlelight, and even rudimentary kitchens whose smoke was cleverly vented through disguised openings far away to avoid detection. Deep underground, artisans ran small factories, repurposing dud American bombs into lethal landmines and homemade weapons. Command centers housed communication lines and planning sessions that decided the fate of battles happening in the world above. Every aspect of life was concealed from the aerial view of spotter planes and the boots of patrols. Trapdoors blended perfectly with the jungle floor, and vent holes were hidden inside termite mounds. The very soil was a silent ally, muffling sounds and absorbing the tremors of nearby explosions. The existence of the Ku Kai tunnels demonstrates with chilling clarity that the strategic power of the underground has persisted into our recent history. It is a powerful, sobering reminder that human ingenuity and the will to survive can flourish even in the most harrowing conditions, turning the earth itself into both a shield and a weapon. Beneath the elegant boulevards and grand monuments of Paris lies a city of a different kind, a dark mirror to the world above. This is the Paris Catacombs, a labyrinth born not from ancient ritual or warfare, but from a very practical urban crisis. In the late 18th century, the cemeteries of Paris were overflowing, creating unbearable and dangerous sanitary conditions. The solution was as macabre as it was logical. The city authorities decided to relocate the dead, moving the remains of millions of Parisians into the abandoned limestone quarries that riddled the ground beneath their feet. The result is the famous ossuary, a place that transforms a simple tunnel into a profoundly solemn corridor of remembrance. Here, the bones are not scattered or piled in chaos. They are arranged with a startling, almost artistic precision. Walls are built entirely from femurs and tibias, with rows of skulls forming grim patterns, creating a stark, repeating motif that stretches into the darkness. The sheer scale of this assembly is overwhelming. You are not looking at a few skeletons, but at the carefully sorted remains of an estimated 6 million people, a silent, collective testament to the vast cycle of life and death in a single city. Yet this official summer path represents only a fraction of the true network. Beyond the tourist route lies a much vaster and more mysterious labyrinth, a honeycomb of old quarries, service tunnels, and forgotten passages known only to a secretive subculture of urban explorers called the Cataphiles. These individuals hold the keys to a hidden Paris, a world where the official history of the dead gives way to a living, breathing underground culture. They slip into the darkness through secret entrances, descending into a realm they have claimed as their own. In these uncharted sections, the atmosphere shifts completely. The neat stacks of bones are replaced by sprawling galleries where cataphiles have created their own reality. You might find a fully equipped cinema carved into a niche, its screen illuminated by a projector powered by a hidden generator. Further on, a clandestine bar, complete with stools and a stockpile of bottles, sits in a chamber where the only sound is the distant drip of water. There are dining rooms set for elaborate feasts, and even art installations that transform the rough stone walls into galleries. This vibrant, illegal life in the depths creates a powerful and strange duality. The same tunnels that hold the solemn, organized remains of millions also pulse with the energy of secret parties, philosophical discussions, and artistic expression. The cataphiles are not disrespecting the dead. Instead, they are writing a new chapter for these ancient spaces, proving that our relationship with the world beneath our feet is never static. It evolves. A network created to solve a problem of death and decay has been reclaimed as a sanctuary for life, for rebellion, and for community, showing us that these labyrinths are not just relics. They are living entities, constantly being redefined by each new generation that dares to venture into the dark. The hands that carved these worlds from darkness were as varied as the labyrinths themselves. They were not a single, lost superculture, but distinct societies separated by millennia and geography, each responding to a unique and powerful set of circumstances. Consider the anonymous builders of Malta's Hypogeum, a Neolithic people who, with nothing more than stone and bone tools, patiently hollowed out a sacred space over generations. Their motivation was almost certainly spiritual, a drive to connect with forces beyond the visible world. Contrast this with the early Christians of Rome, a marginalized community digging for both practical necessity and to preserve their forbidden faith. Their catacombs were an act of quiet defiance. Then came the engineers of Cappadocia, whole communities motivated by sheer survival, transforming soft volcanic rock into a defensive fortress to protect their entire way of life from invaders. And in a modern echo, the Viet Cong soldiers in Vietnam, driven by the brutal calculus of warfare, turned the very earth into a tactical advantage. So what common threads could possibly bind such different architects together across thousands of years? The first is a simple matter of opportunity, the right kind of earth. Each of these cultures had access to a workable geology, whether it was the soft limestone of Malta, the crumbly tufa beneath Rome, the malleable volcanic rock of Cappadocia, or the dense clay of Kukai. You cannot carve a labyrinth out of granite with primitive tools. The ground itself had to cooperate. The second thread is a shared, advanced knowledge of engineering and stone working. This was not random digging, it was a precise science. They understood structural integrity, knowing how to shape arches to support immense weight, how to carve staircases that would not collapse, and how to engineer ventilation shafts and water channels to sustain life in the depths. This was applied physics perfected through trial, error, and passed down through generations. But the most crucial commonality is the driving force, the compelling reason to choose a life underground. For each of these builders, the surface world presented a profound challenge, whether it was spiritual yearning, religious persecution, the threat of annihilation, or the horrors of modern combat. The labyrinth was the answer. It was a deliberate solution, a controlled environment carved out of chaos. When we recognize this, these networks transform in our understanding. They are no longer random holes or simple shelters. They are the ultimate expressions of human ingenuity under pressure, physical manifestations of prayer, fear, and the unyielding will to endure. They show us that when the world above becomes impossible, humanity's response has often been the same: to dig, to hide, and to create a new world in the quiet dark below. The sheer physical reality of these spaces forces a single, staggering question. How was any of this even possible? We are talking about networks that plunge the equivalent of a 20-story building into the earth, carved with nothing but human muscle and primitive tools. The answer lies not in lost technology, but in a profound combination of patience, observation, and applied physics that would impress any modern engineer. Primary tools of these subterranean architects were deceptively simple. They used stone hammers to pound and shatter rock, and picks made from the sturdy antlers of deer to pry loose the broken pieces. Think about that for a moment. The very first step in creating a city like Derinkuyu began with a person swinging a heavy rock or a deer's antler against a solid wall of stone. This was not a quick process. It was a symphony of relentless, repetitive labor, a collective effort spanning generations where every inch of tunnel was won through immense physical exertion. But they were not just brute force diggers. They were brilliant geologists in their own right. They knew how to read the rock, seeking out natural fissures and softer layers to make their work easier. They understood the structure of the earth they were entering. Once a passage was dug, the next critical challenge was ensuring it would not collapse. Their solution was architectural genius. They almost never carved simple, square tunnels. Instead, they shaped their corridors with arched ceilings, a form that naturally distributes the immense weight of the overlying earth outward and down into the walls. This simple understanding of load-bearing principles is why many of these tunnels are still perfectly intact thousands of years later. They were not just digging holes. They were building with the earth itself. Then came the most vital question of all: how do you breathe deep underground? The solution was a masterpiece of passive engineering, harnessing the natural laws of air itself. They carved long, narrow ventilation shafts that ran from the deepest chambers all the way up to the surface. These were not random holes, they functioned like chimneys. The air deep within the earth is cooler and denser, while the air at the surface is warmer and lighter. This temperature difference creates a constant, gentle draft. The cool, heavy air would sink down into the lower levels, pushing the stale, warm air up and out through these shafts, providing a continuous supply of fresh, breathable air without a single moving part. In places like Derinkuyu, over 50 of these shafts also doubled as wells, bringing down both air and water. This was climate control carved from stone. The true marvel is that all of this, the excavation, the reinforcement, the ventilation, was accomplished through careful observation of the natural world and a deep, patient understanding of cause and effect. These builders did not have blueprints in the modern sense. They had a vision passed down through whispered plans and the accumulated knowledge of their ancestors. Their legacy is not merely the empty tunnels we walk through today, but a breathtaking demonstration of what human communities can achieve when they work together toward a singular, monumental goal across lifetimes. This powerful need for sanctuary, for a place to simply exist when the world above turns hostile, is perhaps the most resonant reason we find these labyrinths. The earth itself became the ultimate protector, its silent mass a shield against persecution, war, and even the elements. We can see this desperate ingenuity in the cliffside monasteries of Cappadocia, where entire churches and monks' cells were carved into the soft rock, creating spiritual fortresses that were both remote and easily defensible. But the function of the underground as a life-saving refuge extends into a much darker, more recent chapter of history. During the horrors of the Holocaust, as the Nazi regime systematically hunted Jewish people across Europe, the very ground became a last hope for survival. In cities like Warsaw and Lviv, Jews facing annihilation sought refuge in the only places left, in sewers, in cellars, and in forgotten bunkers. These were not the grand, planned cities of Derinkuyu, but desperate, cramped, and terrifying holes. Families would live for months, even years, in total silence and near darkness, their world reduced to a few square meters of damp earth. A single cough, a child's cry, or the scuffle of a rat could mean discovery and death. In these grim conditions, the labyrinth was not a place of ritual or community in any normal sense. It was a stark, brutal necessity. The act of going underground was a final, profound act of preservation, a choice to embrace the dark in order to escape a far greater darkness above. This repeated pattern, from ancient Cappadocia to 20th century cellars, reveals a chilling truth about human history. When fear becomes the governing force on the surface, our most fundamental instinct is to dig, to hide, and to wait. The sanctuary offered by these networks was not about comfort. It was about the raw, unyielding will to survive, to outlast the storm raging overhead, no matter the personal cost. The silence of these spaces holds the echoes of countless quiet breaths, of hearts pounding in fear and hope, a testament to the fact that the most important rooms in human history are sometimes the ones we never knew were there. The darkness of these labyrinths was often a sacred darkness. For many ancient cultures, the journey underground was not an escape from the world, but a deliberate path toward it. These were spaces meticulously designed for ritual, for burial, and for bridging the immense gap between the living and the dead. In the resonant chambers of Malta's Hypogeum, the carefully sorted bones suggest it was far more than a tomb. It was a place of transformation where the echoes of chanting voices might have been used to alter consciousness, to communicate with ancestors, or to guide souls into the afterlife. The very architecture, descending through 3 symbolic levels, mimics a spiritual journey into the Earth's womb, a return to the source before rebirth. This profound connection between the subterranean and the sacred is a thread woven through global mythology. The ancient Greeks spoke of Hades, a vast, intricate kingdom beneath the earth where shades of the departed wandered. The Norse believed in Svartalfheim, a subterranean realm of dwarves and spirits, while Mesopotamian myths described a grim underworld called Urkala, a place of dust and silence from which none could return. These were not just stories, they were maps of a spiritual cosmology, and the physical labyrinths humans built were their tangible counterparts. By descending into a man-made cave, a priest or an initiate could symbolically travel into that mythological realm. An Egyptian tomb, with its long, descending passageways leading to a sealed burial chamber, was not merely a secure box for a body. It was a detailed replica of the Juwat, the Egyptian underworld, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul through its treacherous landscapes and toward resurrection. The labyrinth itself became a ritual device, its confusing paths meant to disorient the living and perhaps to trap malevolent spirits protecting the sacred core. When we view these networks through this lens, their purpose shifts dramatically. They were not just hiding places or cities, they were gateways. The act of carving into the earth was an act of reaching into the domain of gods, ancestors, and cosmic forces. Every smoothed wall and every darkened chamber was an attempt to build a permanent bridge across the greatest mystery of all, what lies beyond the veil of life. This symbolic function reveals a universal human impulse to use the physical world to comprehend the spiritual one, to dig downward in search of answers that have always seemed to lie just beyond our sight. Yet for all their spiritual and defensive power, the true genius of these labyrinths often lay in solving the most basic human problem, the simple need to eat and drink. Not every chamber was an oracle room or a defensive bastion. Many were essentially giant subterranean refrigerators and pantries, masterpieces of practical engineering designed to sustain a community through times of scarcity. Consider the ancient Persian yakchuls, towering mud brick domes that rose from the desert floor. While the structure above was impressive, its true magic happened below in a massive underground storage pit. These pits were connected to a system of wind catchers and often an underground aqueduct called a kanat, which brought water from the mountains. The design exploited the principles of physics with brilliant simplicity. The thick earthen walls provided insulation, while the wind catchers funneled cool, dry desert air down into the storage space. Any water that seeped in would freeze during the cold nights, and the insulated earth would preserve that ice and the food stored alongside it throughout the blistering heat of summer. A yakchal was not a ceremonial space. It was a public utility, a community freezer that allowed an entire town to preserve food year-round. This same practical ingenuity was at work deep within the underground cities of Cappadocia. Beyond the churches and rolling stone doors, you would find vast, cavernous rooms with dozens of large, barrel-shaped pits carved directly into the floor. These were not for hiding people. They were gigantic storage silos capable of holding thousands of liters of grain, dried legumes, and olive oil. The cool, stable temperature and darkness of the underground world created a perfect, natural preservation environment, protecting these vital supplies from spoilage and pests. In adjacent chambers, you would find even more evidence of long-term planning, sophisticated wine presses and rows of enormous clay jars called pithoi, buried up to their necks in the ground to keep their precious contents of wine and water at a constant, cool temperature. A city like Derinkuyu was not just a fortress, it was a fully stocked survival ark. An invading army could lay siege to the surface for months, never knowing that just beneath their feet, a hidden population was living off the fruits of their own foresight, drinking wine pressed from grapes grown in the sun, and eating bread from grain harvested the previous season. This highlights a different, yet equally profound form of human brilliance. The greatest mystery of these labyrinths is not always why they were built, but how they reveal the quiet, everyday genius required to manage resources, to plan for an uncertain future, and to ensure the survival of a community, one stored jar of grain at a time. The silence in the Hypogeum of Malta is not empty. It is a canvas for sound, and in one chamber in particular, that canvas comes alive in a way that defies simple explanation. This is the so-called oracle chamber, a small, oval room carved with a perfection that seems to amplify even the slightest whisper. When a deep, male voice is projected at a specific resonant frequency within this space, something remarkable happens. The sound does not just echo, it amplifies and distorts, creating a powerful, vibrating hum that seems to emanate from the very stone, a sensation you can feel in your bones as much as hear with your ears. This is not a random acoustic fluke. The chamber's shape, its dimensions, and the smooth, curved walls all work in concert to transform a human voice into something otherworldly, a phenomenon that would have been utterly magical to the people who built this place 5,000 years ago. It is difficult to stand in that chamber and not feel that this was by design. The leading theory among researchers is that this was a deliberate tool for ritual. A priest or shaman standing in that niche could have used their voice to create an immersive sonic experience, making it seem as though the stones themselves were speaking. The vibrations rolling through the complex would have been felt in adjacent chambers, perhaps signaling the start of a ceremony or creating an aura of divine presence for those gathered in the dark. This intentional manipulation of sound is not unique to Malta. In other ancient sites, from the burial chambers of Ireland to the temples of Mexico, we find similar acoustic anomalies that suggest a widespread, ancient knowledge of sound's power to alter consciousness and create sacred space. Today, a growing field called Archaeoacoustics is using sophisticated tools to map these sonic properties. Scientists are measuring reverberation times and resonant frequencies, treating these ancient structures not just as archaeological sites, but as sophisticated instruments. What they are discovering confirms that our ancestors were not just master stoneworkers. They were pioneers of perceptual engineering, using the physics of sound to shape spiritual experience in a way that we, with all our technology, are only just beginning to decode. Mapping these ancient labyrinths today is a science of shadows and silence. modern explorers, a team of archaeologists, geologists, and specialized cavers called speleologists, do not venture into the dark with torches and simple maps. Their work begins with the most advanced tools we have, from ground-penetrating radar that can sense hollow spaces deep within the earth to laser scanners that paint every crack and contour of a tunnel in perfect three-dimensional detail. They send robotic probes, small, tethered vehicles equipped with cameras and sensors, into passages too narrow or too dangerous for a human to enter. These mechanical scouts beam back images of chambers that no living person has ever seen, revealing artwork or artifacts untouched for millennia. Yet for all this technology, the fundamental challenge remains profoundly physical and deeply human. The greatest threat inside these time capsules is often our own presence. The simple act of breathing can alter the humidity and carbon dioxide levels in a sealed space, potentially causing ancient pigments on the walls to flake away. A misplaced footstep can collapse a fragile floor that has held for thousands of years. Every expedition is a high-stakes balancing act, a race to document a site completely before the very process of exploring it contributes to its slow decay. They face structural instability where a single wrong sound vibration could trigger a collapse. They navigate sections flooded with icy, opaque water, feeling their way through total blindness. They monitor oxygen levels constantly, knowing that a pocket of inert gas or a buildup of toxic radon can be a silent, invisible killer in the deep. This is why the modern explorer's most important tool is not a scanner or a drone, but a principle, the ethical imperative to preserve. Every decision is filtered through a single question: how can we learn from this place without leaving a trace? Ropes are carefully placed to avoid rubbing on ancient surfaces. Walkways are installed to keep modern dust from settling on the original floor. The ultimate goal is no longer just to find and claim, but to understand and protect. These individuals are the guardians of the threshold, ensuring that the silent stories carved into these stones will still be there, waiting in the dark for the generations yet to come. For every labyrinth we have carefully mapped, there are whispers of others still shrouded in shadow, their passages sealed by time and debris. These are the lost networks, the phantom limbs of our subterranean history, and their legends are as compelling as the structures we can actually walk through. Consider the enduring enigma beneath the sands of Giza. For generations, stories have circulated among local Bedouin and explorers of a vast, interconnected city of tunnels running deep under the Sphinx and the Great Pyramids. Mainstream archaeology has long been skeptical, yet recent scientific surveys have added a tantalizing layer of credibility. Ground-penetrating radar scans have detected startling anomalies, suggesting the presence of large, hollow chambers and what appear to be man-made passageways in the bedrock below the plateau, places no modern person has ever seen. Similar rumors speak of sprawling, unexplored levels beneath ancient Mesopotamian cities like Babylon, where the very dust seems to hold the memory of a world below. The technology we use to hunt for these ghosts is as fascinating as the search itself. Without ever lifting a shovel, researchers can now send radar pulses and electrical currents deep into the earth, listening for the echo of emptiness where solid rock should be. These non-invasive tools paint a fuzzy, incomplete picture, a maddening and thrilling hint of what might lie just beyond our reach. A single, clear radar return showing a perfect geometric void could signal the discovery of a king's tomb, a sealed library, or an entire network of tunnels that would force us to rewrite a chapter of human history we thought we had finished. This is the powerful, almost romantic driver that fuels so much modern research. The greatest discovery may not be a single artifact, but an entire unknown world, a lost labyrinth waiting in the silent dark for its story to finally be told. The silent endurance of these labyrinths was not just a triumph of human will, but a partnership with the very ground beneath their feet. These ancient builders were master geologists, possessing an intimate understanding of the stone they sought to conquer. Their success was entirely dependent on finding the right kind of earth, a geological co-conspirator that would allow for both excavation and stability. In Cappadocia, the landscape itself was a gift. The region's soft volcanic tuff, a rock formed from compressed volcanic ash, was the perfect medium. It was firm enough to hold its shape when carved, yet soft enough to be worked with simple stone and bone tools. This malleability allowed for the creation of the vast, multi-level city of Derinkuyu, with its smooth, rounded chambers and intricate ventilation shafts. The rock was forgiving, permitting the kind of architectural ambition that would be unthinkable in harder granite. A different kind of rock enabled the mystery of Malta. There, the builders worked with a stable, Globigerina limestone. This stone is relatively soft when first quarried from the ground, making it easier to shape with primitive tools, but it possesses a remarkable property. Upon exposure to air, it hardens, curing into a durable and resilient building block. This allowed the creators of the Hypogeum to carve their three-tiered sanctuary with incredible precision, confident that the walls and ceilings would not crumble over the centuries. The stone's stability granted them the audacity to create the oracle chamber, where acoustic perfection depended on flawlessly smooth, curved surfaces that would not degrade. And beneath the streets of Paris, the story was written in chalk and limestone. The city sits atop a foundation of abandoned quarries, from which the very stone to build its iconic buildings above was extracted. This labyrinth of empty spaces, while not originally carved for human habitation, proved stable enough to be repurposed into the city's infamous catacombs. The cool, dry conditions of the limestone tunnels were naturally preservative, making them an ideal, if macabre, repository for the bones of millions. In each case, the properties of the local rock dictated everything. The volcanic tuff of Cappadocia allowed for deep, defensive cities. The limestone of Malta enabled sacred, resonant architecture. The quarries under Paris provided a practical, if grim, solution to an urban crisis. The earth did not just passively host these labyrinths, it actively enabled their creation, offering its unique character to each project. The perfect stone meant the difference between a lasting monument and a collapsed tunnel, between a sanctuary that endured for millennia and one that was lost to rubble after a single generation. The same primal fear and wonder inspired by these stone corridors echo through our greatest stories. Long before archaeologists began mapping these sites, humanity was already dreaming of labyrinths. The most famous of all is the myth of the Minotaur, a monstrous half-man, half-bull imprisoned by King Minos of Crete in an inescapable maze designed by the master craftsman Daedalus. This was not a natural cave, it was a deliberately confusing, man-made prison, a subterranean network so complex that neither the monster inside nor the sacrificial victims sent in could ever find their way out. It is no coincidence that this legend emerged from the same Mediterranean world that houses the real-life Hypogeum of Malta and the countless Minoan palace complexes on Crete, which themselves are sprawling, maze-like structures. The myth takes the tangible reality of these ancient sites and weaves it into a powerful story about confronting the monster within the dark, both literal and metaphorical. This archetype of the labyrinth as a psychological and physical trial has never left us. It is the foundation for the twisting hedge mazes of European gardens, a playful echo of a much older terror. In modern times, the labyrinth has evolved into the treacherous depths of the Moria mines in The Lord of the Rings, a dwarven underground kingdom that becomes a tomb. It is the shifting, sentient corridors of the hedge maze in The Shining, where Jack Torrance confronts his own insanity. In video games, it is the endless, monster-filled halls of survival horror, where the player's ultimate goal is simply to navigate the dark and find a way out. These are not random settings. They are direct descendants of the ancient impulse that built Derinkuyu and the Catacombs. Our fictional labyrinths continue to serve the same core functions as their real-world counterparts. They are places of trial and initiation where a hero is tested. They are places of concealment, hiding terrible secrets or terrifying monsters. And they are places of transformation, where those who enter are forever changed by the journey through the dark. The stories we tell ourselves about these spaces are a cultural memory, a deep-seated recognition that to venture underground is to face the ultimate unknown, and that the greatest challenge within the maze has always been and will always be ourselves. These vast underground networks are not empty tombs. They are living, breathing worlds, hosting entire ecosystems that have adapted to a life of permanent night. Step beyond the grand chambers and carved passageways, and you will find a different kind of inhabitant, one that arrived long after the human architects departed. The environment here is a constant, a world without seasons. The temperature remains cool and stable year-round, and the humidity is often high, creating a unique climate sealed away from the sun. In this profound darkness, life has found a way, evolving into forms that are as strange and specialized as the labyrinths themselves. The foundation of these subterranean food chains is not sunlight, but stone and decay. Specialized fungi and bacteria coat the walls in delicate, ghostly films, feeding on the minerals in the rock or on the scant organic matter that washes in with water or is carried in by animals. These microscopic organisms are the primary producers of this sunless world, the grass of the underground prairie. They, in turn, support a more visible cast of residents. In the deeper, drier tunnels, you might find vast colonies of bats clinging to the ceilings. These are not mere visitors. For them, the labyrinth is a vital sanctuary, a safe roost where they can sleep through the day undisturbed. Their presence is a cycle of life in itself. Their droppings, known as guano, accumulate into rich, pungent mounds on the floor below, fertilizing the entire cave system and supporting a bustling community of insects, from specialized mites to strange, translucent springtails that hop through the nutrient-rich soil. In the most isolated sections of these networks, where light has never touched, evolution has taken a particularly dramatic turn. You can find species of insects that have lost their pigmentation, becoming pale white or completely transparent. Even more remarkably, many have lost their eyes entirely. In a world of absolute blackness, sight is a useless expenditure of energy. These blind crickets and colorless beetles navigate their dark universe through incredibly sensitive antennae, feeling their way along vibrations in the rock and sensing chemical cues in the air. They are living proof of life's relentless adaptability. These fragile biospheres are as much a part of the labyrinth story as the tool marks on the walls. Scientists studying these unique communities, a field called biospeleology, gain incredible insights. The bacteria and fungi can reveal the environmental history of the region, their spores and cells acting as archives of past climate change. The blind, cave-adapted species are a window into evolution itself, showing us how life colonizes and transforms in the most extreme environments on Earth. This reminds us that a labyrinth is never truly abandoned. When the last human footstep fades away, a new, silent, and utterly unique world begins to rise in the dark, a living testament to nature's power to reclaim even our most hidden creations. A single misplaced breath can alter the humidity in a chamber that has remained unchanged for 5,000 years. This is the central dilemma now facing the guardians of these ancient labyrinths. The same global fascination that celebrates their existence also threatens to erase them, creating a modern conflict between preservation and public access. The very act of loving a place to death is a real and pressing danger. Take the Hypogeum of Malta, a site so delicate that its microclimate is carefully monitored. To protect the fragile limestone and ancient pigments from the moisture and carbon dioxide exhaled by visitors, access is now brutally restricted. Only 80 people are permitted to enter each day, a tiny fraction of those who wish to witness its wonders. This is not an attempt to be secretive. It is a necessary act of triage, a recognition that some wonders are simply too fragile for crowds. Across Europe, similar measures are being implemented. In the painted caves of Lascaux, France, the original is now permanently closed to the public. An exact, painstakingly crafted replica stands nearby for tourists, a mirror world built to save the real one from the destructive effects of human presence. Even the vast Paris Catacombs, which seem so robust, face constant restoration. The moisture from thousands of hands brushing against the bone walls, the dust stirred by countless footsteps, all contribute to a slow, insidious decay. The solution is a never-ending cycle of conservation, where sections are periodically closed and cleaned, a monumental effort to maintain the somber atmosphere against the tide of visitation. This balancing act forces a difficult question upon us. Do these places belong to everyone or to the future? Is the right to see them with our own eyes worth the risk of ensuring that no one else ever can? There are no easy answers, only the quiet, ongoing work of trying to protect a finite resource from an infinite curiosity. We can now walk through chambers sealed for millennia without ever disturbing the dust on the floor. This is the promise of technology, a new era of exploration where our most powerful tools are not pickaxes and shovels, but lasers and spectral analysis. The revolution begins not in the dark but from the sky. In dense jungles and rugged landscapes, aerial LIDAR scanning is peeling back the layers of time. By firing millions of laser pulses from an aircraft, this technology can digitally strip away the vegetation that has hidden the Earth's surface for centuries. What emerges is a ghost image of the terrain, revealing the subtle, man-made contours of ancient civilizations. A small, unremarkable hillock is suddenly exposed as the collapsed roof of a vast, buried complex. A faint, straight line becomes the telltale signature of a hidden entrance or a subterranean roadway. LIDAR allows us to see the landscape as the original builders saw it, identifying promising sites for further study without a single intrusive dig. For the labyrinths we already know, a different kind of magic is at work. High-definition laser scanners are used to map every millimeter of an interior space. As the scanner rotates, it captures billions of data points, creating a point cloud image of stunning precision. This data is then transformed into an immersive three-dimensional model. With a few clicks, an archaeologist on the other side of the world can float through a virtual replica of a fragile tomb, examining the tool marks on the ceiling or the alignment of a doorway from angles that would be physically impossible in the real space. A child in a classroom can put on a headset and stand in the echoing oracle chamber of the Hypogeum, experiencing its acoustic wonder without ever risking damage to the 5,000-year-old site. These virtual reconstructions are more than just pretty pictures. They are vital scientific instruments, allowing researchers to test theories about structural integrity, sight lines, and even the play of ancient lamplight across the walls. But what about the lives lived in these spaces, The stones themselves hold chemical memories, and we are learning how to listen. Sophisticated residue analysis can detect the faintest traces of organic materials left on the floors of a chamber or inside a broken pottery jar. By studying these chemical fingerprints, scientists can determine what was stored, cooked, or consumed in a room. A patch of discolored soil might reveal traces of fermented grapes, confirming the presence of a winemaking operation deep within an underground city. A residue on a stone altar could be identified as animal fat, pointing to specific sacrificial rituals. A smear inside a small, carved niche might contain chemical compounds unique to a certain type of incense, allowing us to almost smell the atmosphere of an ancient ceremony. This is archaeology at the molecular level, uncovering the ghostly impressions of daily life and sacred practice long after the objects themselves have turned to dust. These technological eyes in the dark are fundamentally changing our relationship with the past. They shift our role from intruders to observers, from those who dismantle to those who preserve. We are no longer forced to choose between knowing a place and saving it. We can now uncover the secrets of these silent networks while leaving them perfectly intact for the future, ensuring that the stories written in stone and soil will never be lost to the light. But what of the spaces that remain off the official maps, where the only light comes from a headlamp and the only rule is to take nothing but pictures? For a global community known as urban explorers, the abandoned subway tunnels, sealed catacombs, and derelict military bunkers of the world are not decaying relics. They are a siren call, a personal frontier waiting to be crossed. This is exploration driven not by academic study, but by a raw, deeply human need to see with one's own eyes, to touch the forgotten, and to claim a small piece of history for oneself. The thrill is in the discovery of a hidden entrance, the feel of cool, damp air from a passage no one has walked in 50 years, and the profound silence of a place the world has literally passed by. It is a direct, personal encounter with the past, a way to connect with history on a visceral level that no museum exhibit can ever replicate. Yet this path of unofficial discovery is paved with significant ethical and physical dangers. The most immediate threat is the labyrinth itself. An unstable floor can give way without warning, plunging an explorer into a flooded sub-basement. A pocket of toxic gas or a simple lack of oxygen in a sealed space can be a silent, invisible killer. The very real, gut-wrenching fear of getting lost in a lightless maze with a dying phone battery and no one knowing where you are is a risk every seasoned explorer has faced. Beyond the physical perils are the legal ones. Trespassing charges, hefty fines, and even criminal prosecution are constant possibilities, turning a moment of wonder into a life-altering legal battle. And underpinning it all is the crucial ethical code, the unwritten rule to which most explorers fiercely adhere. It is a creed of respect to leave everything exactly as it was found, to never vandalize or steal, and to share locations discreetly to protect a site from those who would not show such restraint. This modern-day quest mirrors the very impulses that drove the first archaeologists into the pyramids and the first speleologists into the deepest caves. It is the same human drive for discovery, for pushing boundaries, and for confronting the unknown that has always defined our relationship with the world beneath our feet. The urban explorer, with their backpack and camera, is the latest in a long line of those drawn to the dark, continuing a timeless tradition of personal discovery that operates just outside the glow of institutional approval. This same ancient impulse to build downward now powers our modern cities in ways that would astonish our ancestors. The Roman catacombs and aqueducts were marvels of their age, but today we have carved out a new kind of labyrinth, one of rumbling subways, humming utility corridors, and fortress-like data centers. These are not relics, they are the direct descendants of those ancient networks, answering the same fundamental challenges of space, security, and survival, just with a 21st century blueprint. Think of the sprawling subway systems beneath metropolises like New York or London. They are the modern equivalent of the catacombs, vast and interconnected webs that serve the living instead of the dead. Millions of people flow through these tunnels daily, a subterranean river of humanity that keeps the city above from grinding to a halt. Then there are the utility tunnels, the hidden arteries that carry our water, electricity, and fiber optic cables. Much like the qanats and aqueducts of ancient Persia, these passages are essential lifelines, ensuring that the vital resources of a modern society are delivered safely and efficiently, shielded from the chaos of the surface. And in a direct parallel to the secure, hidden chambers of Derinkuyu, we now bury our most precious assets deep underground for protection. Massive data centers are built in former mines and fortified bunkers, safeguarding the entire digital world's information from both physical and cyber threats. The reasoning is identical to that of the Cappadocian engineers: security through obscurity and the Earth's own insulating mass. This continuous thread from sacred crypt to server farm reveals a profound truth about human civilization. Our drive to solve problems by going underground has never ceased. It has only evolved, proving that the labyrinth beneath our feet is not just a monument to our past, but the very foundation of our future. Despite our advanced technology and centuries of study, the deepest questions about these labyrinths remain stubbornly unanswered. Why, for instance, was a site as magnificent as the Hypogeum of Malta deliberately sealed shut in antiquity, its entrances blocked to bar the world above from the world below forever? This was not an act of neglect but a purposeful closing, as if the knowledge held within was deemed too powerful, too sacred, or too dangerous to remain accessible. We are left to wonder what the guardians of that place were so desperate to protect, or perhaps to contain. Similar riddles appear in the precise celestial alignments found in other underground complexes. Certain shafts and doorways are oriented to capture the sun's rays on a solstice or to frame a specific star. Is this a happy accident of architecture, or does it point to a sophisticated understanding of astronomy, where the rhythms of the cosmos were mirrored in the depths of the Earth? The chilling possibility is that we are merely glimpsing the edges of a science we no longer comprehend. The most profound loss is the human one. The civilizations that engineered these marvels left behind no written records to explain their grand vision. Their oral traditions, their creation stories, and the specific meanings behind their rituals vanished with them. We can analyze the chisel marks and map the corridors, but we cannot hear the chants that filled the oracle chamber or understand the prayers whispered in the deepest crypt. This fundamental disconnect means we are forever interpreting the silent actions of a people whose thoughts are lost to time. For every answer we uncover, a dozen new questions emerge from the shadows. This is precisely what keeps the field of subterranean archaeology so electrifying. The next radar scan, the next descent into a flooded tunnel, could at any moment shatter a long-held assumption and reveal a truth far stranger than we ever imagined. The stone keeps its secrets well, ensuring that the greatest discoveries still lie in wait, deep in the dark. Stepping into these labyrinths is a psychological journey as much as a physical one. The moment you leave the surface world behind, a profound shift occurs. The familiar soundtrack of modern life, the distant hum of traffic, the chatter of people, even the wind, it all vanishes, replaced by a silence so absolute it feels heavy. This is not merely an absence of noise, it is a sensory deprivation that forces your mind to turn inward. Your own breathing becomes loud in your ears, and the rustle of your jacket is a major event. In this void, your perception of time begins to warp. Minutes can feel like hours, and the slow, steady drip of water somewhere in the dark becomes a geological clock marking millennia, not seconds. The sheer weight of history in these spaces is a tangible force. You are not just learning about the past, you are surrounded by it, breathing the same air and touching the same stones as people who lived thousands of years ago. This connection can be overwhelming, a humbling reminder of your own brief moment in the vast timeline of human existence. Nowhere is this confrontation with mortality more direct than in an ossuary like the Paris Catacombs. It is one thing to read that 6 million people rest there. It is another experience entirely to walk through a corridor where the walls are built from femurs and skulls, each one a silent testament to a life once lived, loved, and lost. The patterned repetition is not meant to horrify, but it forces a deep, unavoidable introspection. You are face to face with the one universal human fate, and it asks you a silent, personal question about your own life and legacy. This emotional cocktail of awe, humility, and a touch of primal fear is not a sign of weakness. It is a fundamental human reaction to the deep, the dark, and the ancient. It is the same feeling that likely washed over the very people who built and used these spaces, whether in spiritual reverence or desperate survival. By acknowledging this shared psychological response, we stop being mere observers of history and become participants in a timeless human experience, connecting with the echoes of all who have ever sought meaning, shelter, or answers in the quiet world below. This shared impulse to carve a world beneath our feet knows no single continent or culture. It is a thread woven through the entire tapestry of human history, appearing again and again in the most unexpected places. Far from the catacombs of Rome, beneath the sun-baked plains of northern China, lie the sprawling Yeodong, vast underground dwellings and entire villages carved into the thick, compacted loess soil. These are not just simple holes, but comfortable, multi-room homes with arched doorways and courtyards sunk into the ground, providing natural insulation from the blistering heat of summer and the bitter cold of winter. Meanwhile, in India, the Ellora and Ajanta caves represent a different facet of this universal drive. Here, entire monasteries and breathtaking temples were not built from the ground up, but meticulously excavated downward from the top of a cliff face. Monks and artisans began with the solid rock above them and carved their way down, creating soaring prayer halls, intricate pillars, and stunning sculptures of deities, all from the living stone. And in the Americas, rumors persist of extensive tunnel networks snaking beneath the Great Pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico and other Mesoamerican sites, believed by some to be symbolic portals to the underworld, or perhaps physical pathways for elite rituals. From the subterranean cities of Cappadocia to the cliffside temples of India and the sunken courtyards of China, these networks speak a shared architectural language. They are a global phenomenon, a chorus of human ingenuity rising from the dark on every inhabited continent. This pattern is too widespread, too deeply embedded in our collective past to be a mere coincidence. It points to something fundamental in the human spirit, whether motivated by faith, fear, survival, or a simple need for shelter. We have repeatedly looked downward for solutions. The labyrinth is our shared inheritance, a silent testament to the fact that when faced with the great challenges of existence, humanity's answer has often been the same: to turn to the earth, our oldest and most constant ally, and to find our way in the dark. Our journey through the shadows reveals a profound truth about our species. These labyrinths are not just relics, they are the hidden dimension of human history, a continuous story written in resilience, spirituality, and astonishing ingenuity. From the silent, resonant sanctuaries of Malta to the claustrophobic, bustling wartime tunnels of Vietnam, these networks teach us a vital lesson. Civilization is not only what we build towards the sky in grand monuments and soaring spires. It is also, and perhaps more fundamentally, what we carve into the earth for protection, for worship, and for sheer survival. This dual impulse to reach for the heavens while securing a foothold in the deep is a defining trait of our shared past. The ground beneath our feet is not merely a foundation. It is a living archive, a physical library of human endeavor. The past is not a single, flat layer to be brushed clean and understood at a glance. It is a deep, stratified story, a stack of worlds where each level holds a different chapter of fear, faith, and foresight. The echoing oracle chamber sits atop the defensive city, which lies beside the bone-filled catacombs, all testifying to the many ways we have navigated existence. Let this exploration inspire you to listen more closely to the ground you walk on every day. The pavement of a city street, the soil of a quiet field, these are not endings. They may very well be the ceiling of another world, the roof of a story waiting patiently in the dark for its turn to be heard. We would love to know which of these underground mysteries captures your imagination most. Was it the sacred silence of the Hypogeum, the desperate refuge of Derinkuyu, or the living shadow city beneath Paris? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below and subscribe to keep unearthing the profound secrets of our past together.